A very good morning to all my dear students. Now, beta, after doing some of the chapters from our grammar book, now we are switching over to reader once again. And as you all know that we have already completed 4 units from our English reader, and from today onwards we are starting with our 5th unit. And beta, the chapter number 5 in 5th unit is quality. And let me introduce the chapter to you. As its name suggests, the chapter is regarding the quality. And in this chapter, we'll talk about the quality of shoes a shoemaker is making. Fine. So let's start with the chapter. Now, beta, here is the chapter. Before reading the chapter, we'll read this paragraph also. Can a shoemaker be called an artist? Yes, if he has the same skill and pride in his trade as any other artist and the same respect for it too. Mr. Gessler, a German shoemaker settled in London, is a perfect artist. Read this story to see how he devotes his life to his art. So, beta, in this paragraph, it is mentioned that can we call a shoemaker an artist? Yes, we can call him an artist, but the condition is that the shoemaker must have the same skill and pride in his trade as any other artist has in his trade. And also one more condition is there, that is of respect. He must be a respectable person of his trade. So in this chapter we'll study about Mr. Gessler, who is a perfect artist, and he is a German shoemaker who is settled in London. Now let's see how he devotes his life to the art of shoemaking. Now, before beginning the chapter, I'll explain you the meaning of quality. Quality is something which is we can tell how good or bad something is. Means the good things in it or in anything. Fine. So let's start the chapter. I knew him from the days of my extreme youth because he made my father's boots. He lived with his elder brother in his shop, which was in a small by street in a fashionable part of London. So, beta, here it is mentioned that the writer of the chapter, Quality, is saying that he knew Mr. Gessler from his extreme youth, means when he was young. He knew Mr. Gessler from that time because Mr. Gessler made his father's boots, means Mr. Gessler made writer's father's boots, and Mr. Gessler lived with his elder brother in his shop. And where is their shop? Their shop is situated in a fashionable part of London. Fashionable part of London means the posh area of London. Okay. The shop had a certain quiet distinction. There was no sign upon it other than the name of Gessler Brothers. Actually, the shop was very simple and it was very distinct as it doesn't have any sign. Just Gessler Brothers was written on the shop, and in the window a few pair of boots, and there were some pairs of boots were placed in the window. Fine. He made only what was ordered, and what he made never failed to fit. Means whatever was ordered to Mr. Gessler, he made only shoes on order, and his quality wise, his shoes were very perfect that they never failed to fit anybody. Okay. To make boots, such boots as he made seemed to me then and still seems to me mysterious and wonderful. Means the writer is explaining how wonderful the shoes were which were made by Mr. Gessler. I remember well my shy remarks one day while stretching out to him my youthful foot. Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Gessler? And his answer, given with a sudden smile from out of the redness of his beard, it is an art. So, see, beta, this line, it is an art. Actually, it is German English. Fine. In German accent, we'll read out it as like this. It is an art. Fine. Like it is written here, it is how we pronounce in our language. It is an art. So Mr. Gessler was German, so he was pronouncing it like this. And another thing is that in this chapter basically some direct speech are given in inverted commas, which are given in the accent of Mr. Gessler. Fine. So it was not possible to go to him very often, as his boots lasted terribly. Fine. So here the writer is saying that his boots were quality wise so good that it is not required for him to go to his shop or visit his shop very often, because his boots lasted long, having something beyond the temporary, some essence of boots stitched into them. Okay, now see in the picture, this is the shop and here is the writer, and see the name of the shop is written very in simple language, Gessler Brothers, and these are some of the shoes which are placed in the display of his shop in the window. Okay, now come to the next para. One went in, not as into most shops, but restfully, as one enters a church, and sitting on the single wooden chair waited. Here, beta, the atmosphere of the shop of Mr. Gessler was compared with a church, because a church is also a very quiet place. Now, the writer is saying whenever he visited his shop, it was very quiet, and there was a single wooden chair on which anyone who visits the shop will sit and wait for Mr. Gessler. Now, a guttural sound and tip tap of his slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs, and he would stand before one without coat, a little bent, in leather apron, with sleeves turned back, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots. Now, in this paragraph, it is mentioned that while the writer was waiting on the wooden chair for Mr. Gessler, then suddenly he heard the tip tap of the slippers from the beating of the wooden stairs, and what he saw was a man came in front of him without a coat, and he was a little bent, and he was wearing a leather apron, and he turned his sleeves back, and he was blinking as if he has awakened from the dream of his boots. Fine. So this is the description of how Mr. Gessler came to see his customers. Clear? Now next is, and I would say, how do you do, Mr. Gessler? Could you make me a pair of Russian leather boots? Now the writer is asking Mr. Gessler that how are you? And he was asking that could you make me a pair of Russian leather boots? Now without a word he would leave me, retiring whence he came on into the other portion of the shop, and I would continue to rest in the wooden chair, inhaling the incense of his trade. Now, in these lines, it is explained that without telling a single word, again Mr. Gessler went to the other part of the shop, and he came after some time, and till then the writer was inhaling the incense of his trade. What does this line mean? Here, beta, incense is smell of leather. Fine. And he was inhaling that smell of leather, because this was a shoe shop, so there was a smell of leather only. Fine. Soon he would come back holding in his hand a piece of golden brown leather. Now Mr. Gessler has came back again. Now what is in his hand? He was carrying a gold brown leather. With eyes fixed on it, he would remark. Now Mr. Gessler is looking at the leather only, and he was saying, what a beautiful piece. Now what is it, beta? It is what a beautiful piece. See, here it is written what a beautiful piece. Here it is written in German accent. Fine. When I too had admired it, he would speak again. When do you want them? Now Mr. Gessler asked the writer that when do you want them? Okay. See, when do you want them? And I would answer, oh, as soon as conveniently you can. And he would say, tomorrow fortnight. Or if he were his elder brother, I'll ask my brother. Okay. Now, Mr. Gessler was so busy or so interested in his piece of leather that he was just looking at the leather, and he was appraising it. It was praising it like what a beautiful piece, and he want the same praise from the writer also. And after that he asked him that when would you need them. Now, then I would murmur, "Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Gessler. Good morning," he would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand. Now, after this, that Mr. Gessler had told him, "Okay, fine, tomorrow fortnight I will give you." Then then the writer said thank you, and again Mr. Gessler also said good morning, and he was still looking at that leather only which he was carrying. And as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip tap of his slippers going up the stairs to his dream of boots. And again he went upstairs, and the writer can hear the tip tap of his slippers. Now come to the next page. In this page, I cannot forget that day on which I had occasion to say him, "Mr. Gessler, that last pair of boots creaked." Now, what in this line, the writer is saying that he never got a chance to complain about Mr. Gessler's shoes, but one time he got that chance, and he said that the last pair of boots creaked. Now, he looked at me for a time without replying, as if expecting me to withdraw or qualify that statement. Now here beta, after the writer said to Mr. Gessler that the last pair of boots creaked, Mr. Gessler looked at the writer as if he was expecting that the writer would withdraw his statement. Fine. But after that time, when a writer didn't withdraw his statement, then he said it shouldn't have creaked. Then he said it shouldn't have creaked. Then after that, the writer said, "It did, I'm afraid. You got them wet before they found themselves." Now, Mr. Gessler is saying that you got them wet. But the writer again said, "I don't think so." At that, he lowered his eyes as if hunting for a memory of those boots, and I felt sorry I had mentioned this grave thing. "Send them back," he said. "I'll look at them." Now, when the writer was not convinced that he got them wet, then after that, Mr. Gessler lowered his eyes as if he was reminding himself of those boots, and he was feeling sorry. Also, the writer was feeling sorry here, and then Mr. Gessler said, "Okay, fine, send them back. I'll look at them," means I'll see to it. Okay. "Some boots," he continued slowly, "are bad from birth." Now, Mr. Gessler is saying that some boots are really bad from birth, means the leather was actually not good. "If I can do nothing with them, I'll take them off your bill." Now, Mr. Gessler is saying, if I can't do anything of the shoes, then I'll take off your bill. Now, once only, I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in an emergency at some large firm. Now see beta, here 2 times it is written and it is bracketed once only. Why? Because the writer wants to stress this thing that only once he was mistakenly wore the shoes which he bought from some other large firm, not the shoes made by Mr. Gessler. He took my order without showing me any leather. Now, this time, Mr. Gessler took his order by not showing him any piece of leather, and the writer said that I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior covering of my foot. Then the writer could feel that Mr. Gessler has recognized that these shoes are not his, and at last he said, "Those are not my boots." Now, Mr. Gessler finally said that those are not my boots. The tone was not of anger, nor of sorrow, not even of contempt, but there was in it something quiet that froze the blood. Means the writer is saying, not angrily Mr. Gessler said him like this, but he was very quiet, but something which is that which he can see that, or he can feel that he was hurt. He put his hand down and pressed a finger on the place where the left boot was not quite comfortable. Now see the experience. Mr. Gessler put his hand down and pressed a finger at the exactly right place of the left boot where the boot was not quite comfortable for the writer. "It hurts you there," he said. Now Mr. Gessler said him, "It hurts you there. Those big firms have no self-respect." Now Mr. Gessler is saying about the other big firms or the companies. Now he's saying that they don't have any self-respect. And then, as if something had given way within him, he spoke long and bitterly. And finally, Mr. Gessler spoke a lot about those big firms for a very long time. It was the only time that the writer heard him discuss the conditions and hardships of his trade. Means usually Mr. Gessler don't talk much, but this time actually he was hurt, so he was saying a lot of things about the big firms that they don't have any self respect and all. So beta, today we'll do only up to here. In the next lecture we'll continue with the chapter. Thank you all.